Hello YouTubers, my name is Angela Platt and welcome to my channel. Subscribe to my channel and give me some likes. The purpose of this channel is to bring attention and to bring change to situations and circumstances that have long been out of control. But I would like for us as a unit, black, white, male, and female, to do more than just protest, riot, and talk. Talk is good, protest is great, but there has to be a change. I am not sure what that change is yet. I am a mother. I have 2 adult sons, and I do believe it is my responsibility to pray over my children, even though they're grown and on their own. And it is also my responsibility to talk to young men. In my particular case, when I teach, I talk to young men. I talk to the boys. But more importantly, I think it's important to pray. I think it's important to pray and to lead. I believe it is important to pray, to lead, and to set an example. And just the same way it's important for me to pray over my sons, it is important for these women to pray over their husbands who are police officers. I truly do believe that they're not being prayed over. They're not being prayed for. And they are in situations where they are unable to make proper decisions. The reason why I say that is because of the video with George Floyd being pinned down on the ground with a knee in the back of his neck, and the police officer who stood there and watched it. Now, maybe in his mind, he felt like he was, I don't know, being a good police officer. I don't know what he was thinking, and I'm not here for that. What I am here for is that if his wife, his girlfriend, his mother had prayed for him, maybe his consciousness would have been tweaked, or there would have been a difference. If I'm praying over the lives of my sons, you should be praying over the handling of your husband's job. Whenever he goes out there and he has to fight the good fight of faith, you are at home on the battleground. I have a list of names that I would like to bring attention to. It turns out that these men are black. They resided in the United States, and they're no longer here with us. Anthony Ashford was murdered in California, October of 2015, and no charges were brought against the police officer. Dominique Hutchison was murdered October 15th in California, and no charges were brought against him. Lamontez Jones was murdered October 15th in California. No charges were brought against the police officer. Rayshawn Cole was murdered in October 15th, 2015 in California, and no charges were brought against the police officer. Patterson Brown was murdered October 15th in Virginia, and charges were brought against the police officer. Christopher Kimball was murdered October 2015 in Ohio, and no charges were brought against the police officer. Junior Prosper was murdered September 15th in Florida, and no charges were brought against the police officer. Keith McLeod was murdered September 15th in Maryland. No charges were brought against the police officer. Wayne Wheeler was murdered September 2015 in Michigan, and no charges were brought against the police officer. Levante Biggs was murdered September 2015 in North Carolina. No charges were brought against the police officer. India Kager was murdered September 15th in Virginia. No charges were brought against the police officer. Tyree Crawford was murdered September 2015 in New Jersey. No charges were brought against the police officer. James Carney III was murdered August 2015 in Ohio. No charges were brought against the police officer. Felix Kumi was murdered August 2015 in New York. No charges were brought against the police officer. Shams Manley was murdered August 2015 in Maryland. No charges were brought against the police officer. Christian Taylor was murdered August 2015 in Texas. No charges were brought against the police officer. Troy Robinson was murdered August 2015 in Georgia. No charges were brought against the police officer. Brian Day was murdered July 2015 in Nevada. No charges were brought against the police officer. Michael Saby was murdered August 2015 in Texas. No charges were brought against that police officer. Billy Ray Davis was murdered August 2015, July 2015 in Texas. No charges were brought against the police officer. Samuel Du Bois was murdered July 2015 in Ohio. Charges were brought against the police officer. There was no conviction. Darius Stewart was murdered July 2015 in Tennessee. No charges were brought against the police officer. Albert Davis was murdered July 2015 in Florida. No charges were brought against the police officer. Sandra Bland was murdered July 2015 in Texas. The charges were dropped against the police officer. Salvador Ellswood was murdered July 15th in Florida. No charges were brought against the police officer. George Mann was murdered July 2015 in Georgia. No charges were brought against the police officer. Michael Brown was murdered in Missouri August 2014. Eric Garner was murdered July in New York 2014. Amadou Diallo, 1999, murdered. Patrick Dorismond, the year 2000, murdered. I will continue to have this channel. I will continue to discuss these issues, but the discussion is not for venting. It's for us to work together, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're male, whether you're female. We have to get together. We have to pray and ask the Lord for enlightenment, and we have to do. It is not just okay for us to be angry. We're angry, but we have to do. It's not okay just for us to pray, but we need to pray and we have to do. It's okay to be angry and sin not. And when you don't do nothing, that's a sin. You gotta do something. I appreciate you. I love you. Love you with the love of the Lord. And it is my prayer that we can work together and we can come up with a real solution. What bills need to be passed? What legislation needs to be put in place? Give me a thumbs up if you like the start of this channel. Subscribe to my channel. And we're going to grow together. Bye-bye.